This podcast may contain graphic and/or explicit content that may not be suitable for some listeners, especially kids like me. Listener discretion is advised.
You're listening to the Real Life Podcast, brought to you by the Thin Blue Line for Women. In this podcast, we open up and talk about real life issues as they relate to first responders. It's raw, it's real, and it's about time. I'm Tamara, your host. Thanks for joining me. Don't forget, you can listen to the Real Life Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Radio Public, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Casts, and on YouTube. Thank you for joining us. I have some interesting stats about my podcast that I thought I'd share with everyone. About 44% of you are between the ages of 45 and 49 years old. I thought that was interesting. And I had a little contest on Twitter the other day about this next one. 77% of listeners are female and 23% are male. And other than the United States, I now have listeners in Sweden, Australia, Morocco, Argentina, the Philippines, Lebanon, New Zealand, the United Kingdom, Ireland, and Canada. And we're also on YouTube. So I've learned that YouTube is kind of a totally different beast. It has different algorithms, and I can't even have my own URL until I get 100 subscribers. So if you could just go over to YouTube, and I guess you can click from the link that I put on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook. You can click the link from there when I post the YouTube ones. But if you click on YouTube, you don't have to listen to it there if you don't prefer YouTube, but I would love it if you click subscribe and maybe just leave a little thumbs up, leave a little comment that you liked the podcast or what you liked about that particular show that you listened to. The algorithms of YouTube are completely different, and I'm learning a lot about them. So if you could please go over to YouTube on just a couple of episodes and just, like again, click thumbs up and leave some comments. That would be really awesome. I'd really appreciate that. But thank you for listening. I really appreciate it. Again, I'm doing this all for fun, and it is fun for me. It just gives me something to do in retirement, and I love interviewing people. It's so fun. And let's see. So next week, we're going to have Mother's Day, and I'm just going to replay the episode with my mom and I. So that was the very first episode that I ever recorded, and it was so sweet. My mom is just a doll. I love her so much. But that's going to be next week for Mother's Day. So remember, there's 8 platforms to listen on, but YouTube is the one I'm trying to build up right now. Again, so go subscribe if you can, and click the like button a million times if you can. So I would really like to get my own URL. So thank you again for listening. Thank you for supporting. If you want to support, it only takes 99 cents a month. You can click on the little button that says support. That would be very helpful. That just helps pay for the program that I use to record the guests. That does cost money. But again, 99 cents is really honestly all I need, because if a lot of people do that, then it adds up to the $15 or $20 a month. I forget what it is to pay for it. It's automatic. So I really appreciate all of you. I love getting on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and talking to everybody. And I just want to say thank you again for listening. You're all awesome. Now, let's listen to Detective Blue Line, cop for 18 years, as he tells his story, and he talks about the support he gets from his wife. So on with the show. I'm joined today by a full-time police officer also known on Twitter as Detective Blue Line. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, and thank you for having me come on the show.
Of course. So today we're going to talk about your career. We're going to talk about some bad calls that you've been to. And we're going to end on a positive note with some stories about the support that you get from your wife. Okay?
Yes.
So start by telling me and our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've been a full-time police officer for approximately 18 years. Before that, I was in the insurance business. I was actually a life insurance underwriter. So I actually did a little bit of investigations through that. And that really kind of piqued my interest. After 9/11, our department had actually more or less disbanded. They sent everything out to another office. So at that point, I took advantage of the time. I had some money saved up to go back to college. I took a job with our sheriff's department in corrections and went to school at night. And I finished up my bachelor's degree. I graduated magna cum laude from the college. And after that, I put myself through the police academy. And after that, I was able to go to a larger sheriff's department after that. Then for the state that I'm in, the employment is kind of a little harder to get into than some other states. So you had to work part-time or take jobs with smaller departments. I finally got in with a bigger department, but before then I was with a small city department and worked part-time. That department was like family to me, and I really loved working there. Once I was hired at the bigger department, I had worked there for approximately a year. One of the things that the chief had come to me about and told me was, I understand you're a younger officer. There's a lot of opportunities out there. We just want to make sure that you don't leave. And I said, the only department I would ever leave for was the small city department. And I said, but you know what? They're never going to call me. They won't be hiring anytime soon. And literally within a month, I got a phone call that they were doing a mass hire. And
oh wow,
yeah. So I told the chief, I'm like, sorry, you guys did a wonderful job, but I loved the department down there. There was a lot of action down there, a lot of calls. They gave me exceptional training down there. But I had to go where my heart was with the department I'm at now. And again, we all are like family, dysfunctional family, but yeah.
Aren't we all?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you've been a police officer for 18 years. Is that right? Okay.
Yes.
And what made you choose this career path in the beginning?
Well, again, when I was doing the insurance work, we would get involved with investigations through people would apply for life insurance. And 9 times out of 10, somebody's coming in and they're saying, hey, I'm a healthy person. I can afford, $100,000 insurance. And that was fine. But then we would get the people that came in, I'd like $1 million of life insurance, but I don't want a health exam, or I don't want you to get medical records. So my department was the department that went and checked on that. Mm-hmm. And through that, I kind of got the taste of doing investigations. And right from there, that really kind of piqued my interest. And then again, this was right after 9/11, and I had given, I had my service to my country when I was out of high school, but I wanted to give back and get back into it. And so through law enforcement, that was the best way to fulfill all of that.
Right. Yep. Now, how many different assignments have you worked as an officer in your 18 years?
Well, mostly with our department, we have investigations and we have patrol. But with patrol, we have different tangents that we can work. I was involved with the drug task force. I've been working with that since the beginning, and I still currently work on that. I'll tell you a funny story about that after I'm done. And also with the gang task force. I was one of the officers instrumental in getting it in our county, and now we're part of a more regional approach for the task force, and we've been very successful with our investigations here. But going back to the drug task force, back when I first started, it was all about kicking down doors, doing search warrants, getting these guys off the street. Now I'm older, so now I'm the guy I'm the guy that's dumping the cell phones on the Cellbrite and doing the open source investigations. I'm more behind the scenes. I'm running the search warrants back and forth. Yeah, I'm bringing when they bring the people in, I'm doing questioning and with everyone, but more or less, I'm now kind of doing the more desk type work.
That's because we do get older,
Yes,
we're not.
Yeah.
We're not
Yeah, and we
anymore.
and you know what, we have young officers that I see what I saw in myself, 10, 15 years ago. They have that same drive, so they're the ones now. They want to kick the doors in. They want to go do that, and God bless them. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, what was your favorite assignment? Was Drug Task Force your favorite, or did you like the gangs better?
Well, the gang task force was actually very eye-opening, and because each different gang, whether it's a street gang or outlaw motorcycle gang, they have their own culture, and it's just amazing to. And I'm kind of nerdy, so I like to read the books. I like to learn as much as I can, and just learning what I learned about some of these different groups was very interesting for me. It's kind of sad though how with these gangs, whether it's a street gang or an outlaw motorcycle gang, they all kind of fall back on the same thing, where you have young men mostly. They don't have that structure in their life. They fall into this group where they believe that they have that structure, and unfortunately, it's all illegal, illicit activities that they're getting involved in. But they look for that, and it's a sad point. That the other thing that I did too, and I had written down when we were doing the emails, was I also did animal control, and I'm fully trained as a animal control officer in our county. So I really enjoy doing that. That was I think with that was the most rewarding task that I've had so far, is working with the animal control, because it's just like with children. Sometimes they don't have voices. They can't sit there and talk to you and tell you, that this is going on. You have to dig in and find that, and you're taking those animals out of those situations and putting them into a better life. And again, we see that with so many different situations. Whether again, if it's an animal cruelty case, a child abuse case, and again, some of these kids can't, whether it's a child or an animal or even an individual with disabilities, they can't articulate what's going on, and we have to really be their voice.
Yeah, and you had told me about some of the calls that you went on. You haven't told me the stories yet. I'm going to have you tell them here,
sure,
for us listeners to hear. But can you talk about some difficult calls that you had? Like one, you talked about a shaken baby call.
Yes.
Would you like to talk about that?
I could talk about it a little bit. It's still in court right now.
Okay.
But so I can't go into too much detail. But with that, our patrol officers have been sent to the hospital for suspicious activity. There was a guy there. He brought in a child. Child wasn't breathing. He was acting very strange, not having that normal, not showing those normal signs that there was, that he was going through distress. The child was going through distress. The child got sent down to our major medical trauma center. There was, I was on the phone with our children and youth investigator. She would call me at 4:00 in the morning saying, "I don't think the girl's going to make it." And we just put forth all effort with that. Luckily for us, we were able to get the suspect in pretty much immediately, and he was able. It was myself and the children and youth investigator, and he came through, gave us a statement, gave me a video, allowed us through consent to enter the house, and we got a search warrant, just to cover our butts. But we went into the house. Once we got into the house, he showed us how he supposedly, brought this girl down the stairs, and supposedly she fell. And the doctor saw that and said, absolutely no way. They said this was something that They said this was one of the most serious cases of shaken baby syndrome that they had ever seen. He claimed that she had fallen down the steps while he was carrying her, and there was no signs of bruising. He gave so many inconsistent details, and it came right out in the video that he gave us. But probably the most heartbreaking part of that was I had not actually seen her. I had seen the pictures, and I had to go down to the hospital to go talk to the doctors, go talk to some other staff there. And I walked into the room and where she was. I said, "Can I see this girl?" And they allowed me to go in. And I mean, she had just been out of brain surgery, so her head was completely bandaged. She had tubes everywhere. She had 2 ICU nurses keeping watch over. And, you know, it absolutely broke my heart when I saw that. And then what makes it even worse is that the mom and the boyfriend, who was our suspect, were making such light of this. When they had the password to get into the hospital, they put it down as crybaby. Which is absolutely horrible. I did not send this link to you. I'll send it to you afterwards. It was about 2 years, and I've been keeping up with everything. And again, the court case is still pending. He's actually awaiting sentencing right now. But there was in our local newspaper, there was an article about a group that had given bicycles to special needs children. Now, I knew that she ended up getting formally adopted by one of her nurses at the rehab, but I didn't know anything else, like where she was, or I was just getting updates about her condition. And lo and behold, on the front cover of our local newspaper was a picture of our victim riding one of these special needs bikes.
So she lived?
She lived. She lived.
Wow.
Her life is not going to be the same. Her life has been dramatically changed from this, but the fact that she lived, and I'll tell you, between myself and all the other people involved, we prayed for her. You know,
right.
we really, I believe in the power of faith with that one.
Mm-hmm.
So, because again, I was getting multiple phone calls that she wasn't going to make it.
Wow.
And somehow she pulled through. And she's out of that situation with her mom, and her mom, the boyfriend. They were just horrible people.
So, I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
And now you have another call that you said that you dealt with at a kennel that you say you actually suffer post-traumatic stress from.
Yes.
So can you talk about that one?
Yeah, I'm not going to talk too much about it, though, because like I said, it brings back a little too much. But just to kind of give you some insight, my wife and I, we adopted a dog. This is way back then, and we had gone on vacation, and I knew this kennel because it's right outside of our area there, right outside of our city, and we took the dog there. When we went on vacation, and I love the people there. I love the way that they did everything. Just a few weeks later, we get a call for a fire. It's outside of our jurisdiction, but they called us to respond, to assist. And there was a propane explosion and their trailers. So all the dogs were in the cages. So myself and there was 4 other officers. We went into the fire along with the fire company, and we're pulling dogs out of the cages left and right. There were some dogs, obviously, they couldn't make it. So, like I said, and so much from that. And I'll go on a little bit with that, with talking about my wife and some of the other problems I have, because I mentioned about. I think part of it is I have a little bit of claustrophobia from that. The fact that we were in this enclosed trailer, there was 4 of us were trying to grab these dogs. The flames basically my shirt was melted in the back. It's the polyester shirt. It was melted to my vest by the time we got done, just from the heat in there. And like I said, I'm better now. I still have some residual, things I deal with it. But for years, I couldn't talk about it. And every time I think about it, I would think about my dog being in there and how, and again, it goes back to the animal cruelty part where you have these dogs that they don't have a voice. They can't sit there and say, hey, can you, I need help, or, and so just going in there and seeing these helpless animals in there just really, like I said, that it really upset me.
And you said that your dog was in there just the week prior, right?
Yes.
But it was out at home, safe.
Yes. And then even going, and it's weird because like there were some other traumatic things that happened that day. Basically, and I know you have your little, thing up, before the show. There's some things that you may not want to hear, but like the what happened was a propane delivery, and the propane driver was involved with the blast, and basically to see him and like basically the skin was just falling off of him, and now he survived, but he's never going to be the same either. He was trying to get in there with us when we were trying to rescue the dogs.
Oh wow! Even after being
after being blown up,
Ugh.
So
yeah, you can't unsee that, and
no.
I'm sure there's smells
the smell is what really, and it's just, and then hearing like and then just kind of going into some of the other senses, like the sounds of the dogs, that really, that really the cries, the barks, just really, like I said, it still haunts me. But I have things I do, and there's things my wife helps out with that, really, and like I said, we'll talk about that after the break.
Yeah. So we are going to talk about how you take your difficult emotions and your traumatic memories and what you do to take steps to relax and keep that under control. Yes. And I also want to talk about how important your wife is and how important it is to have some support. So we'll be right back. We'll be right back after this break. Are you interested in CSI or forensics? The Forensic Science Academy program has been recognized as the premier training program completely dedicated to students who are launching their forensic career. The Academy offers specialized hands-on training modules in basic and advanced crime scene investigation, forensic photography, fingerprint identification and classification, crime scene management, and coroner investigations. Instruction is offered in the form of weekend workshops, online courses, webinars, and seminars. Training at the Academy of Forensic Science will give students the competitive edge employers and agencies are looking for when hiring. Past graduates are now working as crime scene investigators, private investigators, forensic pathologists, coroner investigators, forensic nurses, forensic accountants, and even criminalists. The courses are taught by forensic professionals who are experts in the field and hold membership in the International Association for Identification and other professional forensic organizations. For more information, visit forensicscienceacademy.org. Again, that's forensicscienceacademy.org. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. And there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. Download the free Anchor app today or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's anchor.fm. So we're back from break, and as we all know, if an officer is experiencing trouble at home, it eventually affects productivity at work, and it could also lead to problems with even drugs or alcohol. So it's super important for officers to have a strong support system in place. And you're married, right?
Yes, I am. Yep.
Okay. How long have you been married?
Uh, I had to. I know the year because it's 11 years now. It's yeah. I had to. I'm sometimes I'm not good with the math, but I know the day. The day is very important to me, and it was in 2008 we got married, and 11 years. Well,
Oh.
coming on 12.
So what does your wife think about your career as an officer?
She is completely behind it. We got married, and we actually met. I met her on the job, and not to make it sound too stereotypical because this happens sometimes, but she was working as the check-in clerk at the hospital. So I would come in and, when I was working night shift, I bring the DUIs in. She was working night shift. So that's how it all started. So I always hear people talking about, oh, nurses and cops, and yeah, it's kind of the same thing. So that she knew what I did. She knew about the people that I dealt with. And now she doesn't work at the hospital anymore, which is good because things kind of got worse now. But she is 100% behind me with this. However, the two of us are both of us are counting down the days for my retirement. So
I bet.
yeah. And she said, I don't want you to put a uniform on, and she was like, as long as you feel that that's the right way to go. Now, I did tell her I might look into becoming a park ranger. She's happy with that, but she doesn't want to see me go to another department after I retire. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So do you two hang out with other officers and their wives? Like, do you have a lot of couples?
We keep our social circle kind of closed. And when we do, it's usually other officers, or ironically, her best friend at work, who she doesn't work in the medical field anymore. She works with a warehouse. Her best friend is married to a police officer, so now the four of us go out, and
Okay.
it might be and I don't drink, so I'll tell they do their wine tours. So of course, me and her husband will sit there and swap war stories, and the girls go have their wine. So. But yeah, we keep our social circle kind of tight. Family means a lot to us, so we're very, very close with our families. But like I said, most of the time, no, and she said even for her it's hard because she hears other other coworkers talking about some of the issues that they have, and she's like, listen, some of the stuff that my husband's gone through is completely in a different ballpark than what they're going through. So
right. Has she ever been on a ride along with you or with anyone else?
No, she hasn't. I know she's expressed interest in it, but I don't think she wants to at this point.
Maybe she shouldn't.
Keep
her away from there.
Yeah, and the one thing is that with her working at the hospital, like I said, we brought in DUIs, but then we would also have 302s, mental health commitments, and she has seen the absolute worst. She's seen some funny things that have happened, but she's also seen the worst where, we're bringing somebody in for an involuntary and they decide to, throw down, and we're the only people there that can help out, and sometimes it does get ugly.
So when you come home from your shift every day, do you tell her about things that happen on your shift? Like, do you give her a rundown or a debriefing of everything you did?
I don't. One thing that we kind of have this understanding with is, unless there's something that's really bothering me, I won't talk to her about, hey, this is the calls that I went on. These are the things I investigated. She knows. And the one thing is that, especially now with social media, everyone kind of knows what's going on. But with her, she doesn't come out and ask. And basically, we have this understanding. And I think this is an understanding that a lot of police officers and their wives or husband should have is, if you sit there and say, hey, what exactly happened, or sometimes you don't want to rehash that, and it's best. She knows that if I have something that I really want to, she'll know, and we kind of key in on each other so that she knows if I'm having a bad day. It's not so much that she'll ask me; she'll come up and she'll give me a hug, or she'll come in and say, "Hey, are you all right?" Without directly asking about what happened, and then I can say, "Hey, listen, we just dealt with a death investigation," or I might go into something like that, but I won't go into too many details. And like I said, we both have that understanding.
Okay.
I also don't do the same with her either, because she does have bad days, and I'm kind of the same way where if I see her having a bad day, it's the same thing. I'll come up, I'll give her that support, and if she wants to talk to me about it, I'm there for her to talk about.
Okay. Are there any things that you two have agreed upon that you just absolutely will not tell her about no matter what?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't think that there's anything out there that really like I can't. There's things that I keep, that I'll keep, but she knows about them. She knows about the feelings I've had with the kennel fire. She knows about some of the feelings I've had with some of these other cases I've worked on, and she knows about kind of the trauma that goes along with it. But we don't really keep anything secret
Okay.
per se. The funny thing is, and this is actually kind of silly, is we did do a prostitution bust, and I told her, I said, I might have to go in there as one of the people. She was like, "Oh, that's fine," So, something like that, but like I said, some of the deep feelings. We have another outlet, and I'll talk about that maybe a little later. But basically, there's nothing really that I keep hidden from her.
Okay. Now, since you said she offers you a lot of support, is it safe to say that she notices shifts in your mood and asks you what's wrong? Like if you
Oh,
walk in the door,
oh,
she just
absolutely.
knows.
Yeah, no. She's really, like I said, the two of us, we really kind of pick up on each other's feelings and everything. I seriously, I think that if in another life she would have made a great detective too, because again, I think that both of us we can kind of read the micro expressions and such, and I can kind of tell, and she could also.
Yeah.
So
Now, earlier you said you suffer from claustrophobia, and your wife is really good about helping you through that.
yes.
Can you talk about that more? Like, did that come from that kennel call, or did you already have claustrophobia? Talk about that.
I never really noticed much problems with claustrophobia before. In fact, I used to, go down, like tubes and stuff, back in the old Coast Guard days, in enclosed spaces, I had no problems whatsoever. But it seems like after his kennel fire, just things kind of, maybe I had it in there and I just kind of kept it down and kept it under control. But it seems like after that, I seem to have the problem. And I have a problem with like people too. And when I say people, like, if I'm not working, like if I'm working and I'm working, say like a festival, or I'm working, a large event, and I'm in the middle of 300 people, I have no problem. But if if I'm not working and I'm sitting there, and I think it's because of the fact that I have a way out. And I think that, if we go to a concert, or if we go to maybe like a convention or something, I just kind of get those feelings, and I have to look for that, way out. I have to look for, that plan of escape. And so my wife, she kind of keyed in on this more so in the last couple of years. So what she does is she always, if she sees me starting to kind of, hyperventilate a little bit or starting to get a little upset, she'll say, "Okay, hey, you know what? Over here, there's a bench. It's a nice open area. We can go over there." Like if we go to concerts, that's a big thing. We always pick an end seat for me. I cannot be, at concerts, or we go to a lot of hockey games. So, well, not anymore. Next year we'll go, but we always use the end seats. I got to have that. Escape route. And I
and
think
room
that
to
comes
breathe.
back. Exactly. And I think that comes back to, I never had those problems until the pizzazz, until the kennel explosion.
Gotcha. And what about your, I'm sure you have hypervigilance because every cop
Yes.
does. How
Yes.
does she handle your constant state of hypervigilance? And how does she get frustrated at you sometimes when you
No,
go to,
no, no,
or does she handle that well?
no. She's so understanding. And the one thing that she'll do is, when we go to a restaurant, what seat do you want to sit at? That's the first thing. Like, we'll be led to our table. What seat do you want to sit at? And it's just little things like that that really kind of, make me feel better. And then I can sit there, and like I said, I'll still be in that state, but knowing that, again, you have that escape, or you have that way to get out, you feel a little better about it.
Yeah, she
Um,
knows that you need to pick your seat, and that gives you some control.
correct,
You need
correct,
that control.
correct. It's more, it's about the control, but maybe not so much. I think it's about that, you got to have that fight or flight syndrome, so that if something were to happen, and I always think of the worst, that you have that, that advantage over any person that's going to be doing something bad to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Isn't it sad that we have to think the worst? I remember when I was on the job, and I worked CSI for 15 years.
Yeah.
And so, but sometimes we would show up at calls and the suspect would still be there, and it was just, I, I think that's just a way to prepare our minds. I always thought of the worst. And a lot of people out there that aren't cops are going to say, "Why do you think the worst and everything?" That's not what I mean. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the worst case scenario and put myself in that position and think, okay,
Yes.
what would I do if? What will I
Yeah.
do when? And that helps me again feel more in control about what could
Absolutely.
happen. And I think every person out there should do that, not just cops. Just
Exactly.
with all of our crime going on today, every person should evaluate, what they would do in any
Yes.
situation. That's just a normal human instinct to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's something that, they say it's the hypervigilance, but really, more or less, it's that survival factor, and
Oh yeah.
especially in today's day and age, because you never
And
know.
did you read my book?
I did. I did.
Okay.
Chapter
Now
11 made me cry.
I know
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
That's no problem.
So born and raised in California. I lived in Sacramento all my life, and it's a crime filled town. There's some areas that don't have crime, but it's really bad. And I'm glad to be out of there. I moved to Tennessee right after I retired, so I've been here almost 4 years, and I still I still watch my back when I go places and when I go to the gas station, but it's way safer here. I live in a town where, I mean, there's like hardly any crime here at all. I laugh when people say, "Hey, guess what happened this morning? Someone broke in this place and stole 25 cents." It cracks me up. But
Yeah. Yeah.
that's crime to them here.
Yeah.
But I notice myself still just watching my back everywhere I go, and it's like, gosh, I've been retired for 4 years and I can't get out of this.
Exactly, exactly. And that's why I'm a little worried about when I do retire. I got to find something that I guess I can kind of, keep involved with a little bit, but,
Hmm.
but not quite, putting the uniform on every morning, and,
Yeah, a safe way to
yeah,
do it.
yeah,
Volunteer for
exactly.
something
Exactly.
safely. Right.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
Uh, I was going to say
So,
that, but my wife has been my absolute rock, in everything, and I really lucked out in finding her, and again, she has been so supportive of me, and with everything that I do, and again, we just have this, mutual connection, that she knows, like I said, when to kind of come over and to give me that support. She knows there's other times that I'm not that, I really don't want to talk to anybody, and
mhm.
and so, she'll let me go for a little bit, but then at some point she'll come down and say, okay, you don't have to talk to me about what happened, but, let's go upstairs and watch TV. Let's sit together. Let's
Yeah.
go out for a drive, and it
Yeah.
really has been
Yeah.
a very
come
helpful.
back to reality. Come on.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, do you have any words of advice for wives of law enforcement out there? Just talk to the wives right now.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is, uh, you know, you don't have to know everything that happened during that their day. But when they come in and you see them, whether it's in a bad mood or you see them, a lot of us, we're not going to sit there and cry. But when you can tell when we're on that verge of tears, to come and give your spouse support at that time, because there's been plenty of times that I've gone through some really rough times and had some really nasty calls, and I don't want to tell my wife about the call I just had and to get her upset, but she'll come over and she'll comfort me without really going into the details. One day in particular, it wasn't really on here, but one day in particular, we had a young lady who tried to commit suicide by self-immolation. She survived, and she was sitting there talking to us. It was kind of the most surreal thing to see, and it's one of those things that I'll never forget. I came home. My wife knew I was upset, and I didn't want to talk to her about it, and she kind of knew. I was like, listen, I said something really bad happened, and she can almost. The worst part was that she can smell on my clothes that odor, and she said, "Well, I didn't see." I said, "Yeah," and I said that's. I don't want to go into it too much further, but she just came by, she gave me a hug, and that made me feel a lot better. So sometimes little signs of affection like that, rather than hey, tell me what happened, is a much greater gift than anything else.
Mm-hmm. Well, so would your words of advice for wives also include if your husband is not talking after a couple of days, when should the wife be worried? Like how many days should go by without the guy talking?
Yeah, I would say after a couple of days. I mean, I've had things where things have gone south, and with an investigation or something at the department, and I may not talk for a couple of days. Once it goes into that third or fourth day, I think then is the time to kind of, and again, not to be direct, but just to go up and offer that support for them.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, do you have any words of advice for male officers out there who don't have, their wives are not cops?
Really, I mean, the one thing is don't always talk shop with them. Yeah, and that's kind of the biggest thing is, you don't have to talk shop. But just go out and appreciate what you have, and appreciate that you have somebody that's connected, outside of the police world, that can help bring you, back to reality sometimes. Because I think that's what my wife has been, excellent at.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. This has been such a great interview. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming on. Thank you for your 18 years of service.
Thank you.
Tell your wife, good job.
All right. I definitely will.
in being a law enforcement wife.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So thank you. I really appreciate your time.
All right. And I appreciate the interview. And again, thank you so much for having me on.
You're so welcome. Thanks.
All right. Thanks.